Hey everyone, thanks for coming to our event at Draper University. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who's from Draper here for hosting us. This has been a long time in the coming. I first met Evan back in, I believe, February actually of 2022 last year, right? Right when Evan was coming out to start Mysten Labs and Sui, etc. And right off the bat, I found it very interesting the idea that he was talking about. At the time, I gotta admit that I didn't fully understand your idea, and I still don't. The more I look into it, the more number one, I joke with you that I get very excited just because I came from engineering background myself. So when I see equations and systematic way of writing things, it's really exciting. But at the same time, of course, I get the headache because Evan is so smart. His team, we're some of the best folks from Facebook, and so this has been, one of the exciting fireside chats I've ever had. And so, for some of you who's dived into, with our post as well as Sui's documentation, obviously there's a lot of differentiating points about what Sui brings to the table in the Web3 landscape, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is what was Evan's personal history? How did you come across blockchain, et cetera? What was your experience like at Libra, all the way to how has that influenced your decision in designing the system? And what's your ultimate thesis for Web3 in the future? So.
First, thank you for coming. Thank you, Draper, for organizing this. Very excited to be sharing my experience and my thoughts with you. We can talk about this a little bit.
Thank you, Evan. So, right off the bat, could you tell us a little bit about how you come across Web3? I know we were talking a little bit about how when you came across this, what were your thoughts, etc. Could you help us understand what was your experience like?
So there was a Web3 when I got started. It was just crypto. Just like a lot of people back in 2016, I heard about Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's a lot of buzz in the news and a lot of crazy stuff happening. People on stage and singing and dancing and doing various things that we never do, but there's a lot of excitement around it. So Bitcoin I understood, kind of first and, quite interesting. Started digging into Ethereum, primarily because my background was very much in programming language runtime. So I saw this kind of a world computer idea being interesting, and I wanted to look at its programming language and runtime system, and I was absolutely horrified. I'm still horrified people using it to do, build things that's worth a lot of money. So that's sort of my entry point. And, I sort of dug in. So a little bit about myself, right? A lot of people shy away from complexity. I actually like complex stuff. My career has always been defined by doing complex systems better. You rethink things and taking on things that other people kind of don't want to deal with. So that was sort of my reaction. Is that wow, there's a lot of excitement about this. It is really horrible. The more I look at it, the more like the concepts are really interesting. I can kind of get it where this is going. But boy, the system is absolutely atrocious. Which gave me an idea that maybe one day there's an opportunity for me to do something here because I'm really intrigued and kind of watching it. So that's sort of how I got started. So 2017, 2018, started getting a little bit involved with startups. And I don't know how many people were there at Facebook 2018, right? I kind of was inside Facebook. I had a blockchain, crypto enthusiast club. I was inviting Chainlink and other projects to come and give talks. Usually very few people, right? Just not people are not connecting with it, but got enough kind of notice, sort of like that need to sort of the next steps, basically.
So you mentioned something very interesting. So you found it very interesting, and at the same time, you're horrified. Could you elaborate condos?
Well, I mean, again, my background is with programming language to the point. I mean, the language is bizarre, right? It's a mix of a lot of things. The implementation is clearly done by amateurs. Just like the data types and all that. And then the worst thing the thing that really horrified me is like, dynamic behaviors. It's like, well, people haven't learned the lessons. Like, one is to kind of interface and allow people to, so the same we have here is like there's the same code law, right, in the crypto space. Well, when code is law, interface is a crime, right? Because now you allow people to write something that's intentionally bad, that conforms to your interface. Now you allow the interface to be executed at some point in time. There's no way you can statically analyze it. And if you cannot statically analyze it, you have no business being used to implement high assurance systems, especially the system that manage money, asset. So I understand why they do it, because they don't understand the programming language, how to design it correctly. So they fall back to the mistakes I've seen over and over again and say, oh, I can't do this, therefore I add dynamic dispatch, right? I allow add these functionality, make it easy, right? You have lost the battle from that point on, because no matter how hard you try, audit, you can have tooling, you have whatever you do, you will never be able to beat the bad guys. The attackers, the hackers always get ahead of you. There is no code is ever going to be completely provably safe. And plus how terrible the language was, right? It's just impossible. All this redundancy, boilerplate stuff. The language doesn't have a first-class concept that's required here, right? You're designing program language. Its job to describe assets, to describe processing of these assets, transfer of the asset, action in response to, some trigger. You don't have the first-class concept of assets. You don't have building access control. The term I have for Solidity VM is a programmer's foot gun that is designed to lose people a lot of money. And that's my conclusion. I still stand by it. Right? There is no amount of fixing that will ever overcome that. It's just wrong. Yeah.
Thank you, Evan. So obviously we went a little bit technical there, but just wanted to bring back. We will get more into the technical part as well. But I want to bring back to your experience at Libra, because you were one of the, if not the founding member of Libra, and Libra was designed with the intention of onboarding major financial banking institutions to come into a decentralized network. What was your experience there, and how has that shaped your view that we need to bring this extra definition or dimension to think about the world of assets, for example?
Yeah, I mean, Libra was very exciting to me. So that was right around the time I was seriously considering kind of going into the space for my career. I got enough of, learned enough about it to know I can do something. Consider going to startups or even starting my own company, but realize what I want to build require the kind of talent that's just not available out there. They're available out there, right? There's no way I could recruit people. Right? It was so early at the time, people mostly see this as a fringe, kind of new thing, and there's not a lot of serious players. It's like a bunch of young kids running around, right, making money and doing funny things. So doing it inside Facebook was exciting. Right? The mission was appealing to me, making money more programmable, accessible to the world. So, I got to, kind of help bootstrap the project. Was able to hire the kind of talent that I wanted to hire, right? Literally the best of the best in distributed cryptography, program language, formal verification. Some of them was transferred to Facebook, but a lot of them I recruited from academia or other companies. So very exciting first few months, or even the first half year or so. Got to design Move, which is one of the first things we embarked upon is figuring out how to program this. For programmable money, we know we're not going to be using Solidity in the end. We're looking into other options like, well, maybe put something on top of Watson and all that. My co-founder has a podcast on that, on journey there, why we reject all those ideas and decide to build Move ourselves. So it's super exciting. The system was a bit of a struggle. I laid on more expertise, right? Some of the expert consensus from VMware and from startup, who's now my co-founder, one of my co-founders. So great experience early on until we sort of got to the point where we hit the wall in terms of sort of the regulatory and political pressure, right? So looking back, some of us proposed a different idea of want to separate the product from the platform. The product is a stablecoin. The platform should be an open, developer platform where you can build, applications on top of it. We float the ideas of starting that platform first, using it for Facebook internal, kind of royalty points or whatever. Then you can open up to developers on the platform and build ways to interact with products and users. And then once we get too big, then you can then introduce the product. But by then it's too late, right? So the reaction is short, right? Facebook, $2 billion users, right? Want to do a synthetic currency to challenge the US dollars. You can imagine the reactions. In hindsight, like how could we have been so naive to think that we would flow? So then it was a lot of struggle to solve those problems, or try to solve those problems while the product development continues. Change it to be more of a fiat-backed stable coin, move the foundation from Switzerland back to the US to appeal to the US regulators and all that. And then the last bit was really tough, right? A lot of people have given up on ideas. Some of us were hoping to do more, at least on the technology side that they didn't get to. Support my team to sort of push ahead on some of the research and innovation side. Seeing a lot of the good and the bad, but ultimately realized it wasn't really much, right? It's just Facebook is just too big, right? And too much in the cross areas, too much a target for the regulators for
right.
it to be possible.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, when I read through Sui's documentation, the philosophy, and the background and stuff, one thing that's really interesting, and you mentioned this as well in other podcasts, etc., is that there's no word in the dictionary to even describe assets. And I found that as a very unique point, and that kind of guides along kind of the design of Sui Stack, etc. How did you arrive at that point?
When we started thinking about designing Move, that was the first thing that jumped out, right? It's kind of intuitive, but then you have to put some thoughts into it, say, what does that look like? And that was the reason why we reject every other general purpose programming language that runs for anything, right? Building a subset or superset, right? Because once you think about the kind of product you want to build, it's very, very clear, right? It's all around assets, or a language to why is that asset important? Well, asset is not any concept in programming language, right? In programming language, you can create anything. Well, asset, if you want to model asset, you have to know, well, you cannot create asset on thin air. You cannot destroy asset, either intentionally or accidentally, right? You cannot use asset double spend, right? In the correct way. There was an essay you also had to have describe policy, can access it, who can transfer, and if you want to dive a step deeper, they say transfer asset may require other verification requirement like KYC, right? So they realize, well, if your language don't have the first class concept, you're not going to be able to do a good job, right? That's right. Theoretically, you can describe anything in any programming language, but you're just going to expose a lot of opportunity to get it wrong. And you won't have a way to analyze it, right? You want to get something that's totally verifiable, basically mathematically prove it's correct. When you think about the billions of dollars that's going to impact, right? So that's a realization, and that's what the language will be about.
And when I read through your documentation, I think, and some of your videos, I think one of the things you talked about is that currently, for example, your NFTs, etc., they live within your smart contract, etc., and that creates certain limitations. I was wondering if you could elaborate upon that, some of the current limitations.
I mean, if you think about it, right, so we talk about assets, right, we talk about ownership, right, so fundamentally the job of the blockchain, the first important one is describing that, right, who owns it, who controls it, right, so if your model is all the data that actually define what an asset is, right, all the information of the characteristic is inside the smart contract, you'll forever be beholden to it, right, so the example, if you think about minting NFTs and you purchase something from a smart contract and create something for you, you pay money, you get something back. But then from there going on, even if I want to give away a transfer to somebody else, I have to interact with that smart contract. If I want to make change to it, I have to talk to the smart contract. If the smart contract doesn't allow me to do anything, I have no alternative, right? Think about this for a second. Right? If today everybody lives in a virtual world, you don't drive your car. Physical car, you drive a virtual car. It's like buying a car from the dealer, and the dealer say, well, you can have you want. That's it. We will never be able to allow you to make change to your car, upgrade your car, buy one if you want to sell to somebody else, and they have to say whether you can do it or not. And by the time you go out of business, that thing is worthless anyway. Right? Think about it for a second. This is worse than the real world. It's worse than Web 2. You have such a flexible system, you fundamentally fail your first job. Describing asset, describing ownership, give developer the power to model any kind of thing, right? Any kind of ownership model. A lot of people talk about blockchain will be great for creators, right? It's about if I create something, I want to have control over my asset. I want to know how it's going to be used. I want to have transparency about if I provide this to a platform for distribution, what I get back. So if you think about it, for creator creating something and they model as a blockchain asset, and then the smart contract doesn't allow you to sort of have freedoms of defining the rules, how this thing is going to get used, right? If I'm a creator, I want to say free to use. You can create derivative work on top of the work, or it's permission. I will say you pay me a fee, you get to utilize this in some way as long as I can pay. If you don't have that power, that tools to describe these rules, what good is this thing for, right? They have one model only. It's just wrong, right? It's really, really limiting. It's really not solving the problem this whole space is supposed to have to.
Right, which in essence, what you're saying is basically that the relationship between the asset owner and the asset is via the smart contract, which itself can be the limiting factor here. And because of that, it doesn't natively support, for example, stuff like native transfers, etc., which really limits that, the word you use is the boundary between asset composability, right?
Well, if all the data is inside a smart contract, you can't export it. What is composability, right? There is no such thing as composability. right? The composability that we talk about today is like sandwich transaction. You can do a flash flow kind of thing. There's no other composability. Right? When I think about composability, there is like, well, there is the how protocols. What you think about in normal general purpose software development is like kind of one function output or one function you get fed is input into another function, right? You chain things together, right? It's one way to compose, right? You have agreement about that. The type, right? You can chain calls together, which is really hard to do in Ethereum, in EVM chains, and in all these other blockchains today. You can kind of hack it in some cases, but that's very little. But then you think about composability, meaning, well, like physical things, right? You want to be able to mix things together. You want to make changes. You want to compose a few things together. I want to model a cup in a virtual world. And I would say the other essay is water. I want to say I feel water in each cup. Okay? Well, now these days, even some of the symbols that you write in smart contracts say, well, this cup contains water, contains beer, contains tea. And then somebody come up later and say, well, what about this other liquid? Well, your smart contract doesn't support it again, right? So again, this is, you think about the concept of assets, it's all hierarchical. You gotta have a way to express the relationship between things. You gotta be able to have a way to express how things are combined together. You gotta be able to append history, make changes to it. None of these things are, you can do anything software. The system makes it so hard to do something this basic. Again, what good is it for?
So going to the fundamental of designing Sui and Move and basically putting asset at the very front and center, how has that influenced the design of your stack from, for example, VM to the way that you think about parallelization, et cetera, et cetera?
It's really complex, right? So I'll say this as we only figured out about March of last year. There's an intuition about how the current model is going wrong. Then there's actually knowing how to change it. So first of all, we've already done some fundamental research and consensus in parallel execution, all that sort of thing. Then when we thought about it is, fundamentally, why are the blockchains the way they are? Right? The first thing they do is basically do a total ordering of all these transactions in a block. When you intuitively understand that most of them have no relationship to each other, there's no contention in computer science, right? If these group of transactions are interacting with this smart contract and another group of transactions interacting with a completely different smart contract, and this one is interacting with an AMT, why everything needs to be ordered, right? You understand that it's fundamentally wrong, right? But then it took us a while to realize, it's because the programming model is wrong, the data model is wrong. Then we realized if everything in this blockchain is a separate object, right? And the programming model is object as inputs and objects as outputs. You not only have a much more natural way of modeling asset, you have a much more natural programming model. You also have this opportunity to preserve that dependency, the contention information where you're not ordering all the things in one go in consensus, you are ordering groups of them separately. You can have multiple consensus happening at the same time. And then you realize, furthermore, if you have what we call a single owner model, right? I own my NFT, I'm the only one that can issue transaction that change the NFT, then I don't even need to do any kind of consensus because there's no ordering required. Then I can bypass consensus completely and go to a different model that's going to be significantly faster than the blockchain. Right, so this is coming from a conceptually sort of intuitive understanding things are wrong to kind of figuring out like step by step on what we want to get to finally figuring out all the details and design to make that work. Really took us a lot of work while we started at Facebook to coming out and forming Mysten Labs and just sort of take on the challenge and have experts in distributed systems, in cryptography, in programming language, in all these different fields coming together to finally realize, like literally that aha moment is that, oh wait, we gotta figure it out, right? This is not only going to be better in terms of kind of like developer experience, it improves upon functionality, can do things that no other gens can do, and also it's going to be much more efficient because now we can do things like, well, if you have more demand coming, you can just literally say, well, right now, because now we can parallelize there, groups of processing, we can just add more resource on the fly to be able to have this sort of elasticity to meet, increase capacity to meet demand. Right? That's when we realized we got something really, really special. The only trade-off really is it's new, and the protocol is much more complex. But the upsides are much better functionality, much more scalability. We changed the relationship to track them up. It's quite different. We also have ways to scale storage. We also can scale reads much easier because now you read the object you care about rather than reading a global state that's going to go true. So that's what we realized. This is not an improved blockchain. This is really something very, very fundamentally different.
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about how you can organize related transactions to be processed, I think the one interesting analogy which I want to bring out to the audience is that you say that if somebody is throwing a party down the street and they're crowding up the street, why should I suffer from that consequence, right? And that's basically the fundamental idea of what you're talking about, is that only the related transactions should be grouped together and processed in that fashion, which could improve the throughput by quite a bit. And you also mentioned a very interesting point where I think that a lot of the blockchains that I've evaluated talk about, for example, the TPS, what's the theoretical maximum TPS that we can have, etc. But you're saying that basically that's fundamentally not necessarily the whole picture. It's also about the elasticity, which means that at the moment when somebody does an NFT drop, when the traffic volume goes up, you can handle that, right? So basically, that's what you were alluding to.
Yeah, I mean, it's about demand is not smooth, right? It's also always peaks and valleys, right? It's no good to talk about your average transaction throughput, right? Because if you're successful, demand is always going to increase. It's always going to catch up to capacity. And if you don't have a way to meet that demand when the spike's coming, right? Facebook doesn't go down on Christmas, right? When the traffic increases by many folds, right? It's because they have a way to increase capacity on demand. If you don't have that design in your system, you're going to fail at some point in time, right? Even if it's right now, you're starting new, there's not much traffic happening, Web3 is still pretty much new, right? There's not a lot happening, you can be pretty happy. But if you look out in the long run, right, it's always going to, the growth curve is always going to exceed your hardware improvement, right? Then you can have to think about, well, can I increase my software to keep up with it? Because my hardware cannot keep up with it, right? Then you have to think about, can I store more resource added to meet the capacity, to meet the demand? If you don't have that, you're going to fail at some point in time, right? So building for the long, to have that would require new thinking in the architecture.
And this brings me to my final point, which is, what's your thesis on Web3? I think that in some of the videos you talked about open web, etc. I'd love to dive in deeper there, or just in general your thesis about Web3.
So if you look at the last few waves, right, what we had the last wave was DeFi Summer, which turned out to be more or less fake, right? We all learned that a lot of you calculate incorrectly, highly inflated, or it's more of a feeding itself, right? You create all this fake traffic, it's a lot of wash trading and everything. So, that's one example, followed by the NFT craze. Well, again, it's speculation. So once the hype cycle will come and then go, and then you look back and say, you realize you really haven't made that much progress, right? DeFi isn't ready to deliver long-lasting consumer benefits, right? We learned, for example, DeFi, a lot of the demand were coming from these, off-chain, closed lending program like Celsius. Turns out they're all fake it, right? The assets being used by it's like there are a lot of problems, right? That's why they're all dead, right? Celsius is dead, Genesis is dead, a lot of programs get shut down, all the yields is not paying anymore compared to the current interest rate. So that is kind of a wave that's driven by narrative. Right? Every wave is being driven by narrative, ICO. Then DeFi somewhere, then NFT craze, all mostly driven by speculation. So I think my thesis is, if we continue, pretty soon we're going to run out of narrative, and the public is going to be even more skeptical. Regulation is coming because they can say there's been plenty of consumer harm, but not as much of the consumer value being delivered. And then eventually this whole usage is of course bust. You cannot continue to feed, kind of recycle the liquidity and expect to last forever. So it's simple. We gotta deliver values. And if you understand, then you think about what are we trying to solve, right? Many of us worked at a big tech company before, where you see what's happening today. The profit of user-generated content, the value of user-generated content, translated into advertising dollars, that's mostly captured by the platform, Facebook, the Google, the YouTube, the TikTok of the world, right? They're squeezing the profit out of user-generated content. And then these platforms themselves now are being squeezed by the Apple and Google, the Play Store, right? They're taking a 30% fee, they're starting to have all kinds of restrictions on data sharing, tracking, and all that. Who are suffering? Well, these big companies are suffering, but the little ones are suffering. User acquisition costs for small business through the roof, right? Because you cannot track, therefore they cannot target advertising accurately, so the cost goes up, everyone's hurting, right? So this is not talked about enough in the mainstream press, is we actually do have a very serious problem of the internet business model today. And nobody seems to be happy. Everybody recognizes something is wrong, but nobody knows how to solve it. But that is what this whole industry should be focusing on, is on the developers' tools to challenge the economists to solve this problem. The problem is bringing the solution to the internet back to a more peer-to-peer model. Right? If I'm a producer of content, you consumer of content, there's a direct relationship. The platform that sort of is a two-way marketplace, they take a cut on the profit, but it's more a coordination problem. Right? That is where the internet starts, is to create a highly efficient marketplace to equal the playing field, and people can't leave without knowledge. That is the thesis. Right? If we create the right platform for the developer to build new kinds of product that's more fit, that's where the value is. And that is the massive opportunity. You will challenge the economy, right? But you gotta start somewhere. It takes some time, but that's where the opportunity is. And cryptocurrency, this mechanism for transferring value easily is only one of the tools, right? People are losing sight of how complex this problem is. What all the different problems we have to solve to meet that promise. So that's the thesis.
Yeah, very interesting thought. For those of you who read our newsletter, this is actually the reason why I went down the rabbit hole to figure out what the hell was internet supposed to be in the beginning, right? When the guy who wrote about the TCP/IP protocol, right, talking about how he wanted to have an open web to have decentralized ways to, or basically not a company pushing content to you, right? And become your way of accessing information, but basically you get a choice in accessing, etc. So, well, thank you so much, Evan. I want to open up to the audience for any questions. Yes.
Yeah, did you mention the word? Did you mention the word elasticity? And does it mean the same as what was scaling or scalability?
Evan, do you want to take that? It's about elasticity, so you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, elasticity is the effect. What effect do you want to accomplish as an infrastructure? You want to have this capacity elasticity to meet demand on the fly, right? That's what you want to achieve. The way to do that is to be able to have a system that's scalable on demand. The only way to do scalable on demand is horizontal scaling, because vertical scaling means bigger and bigger machine, which fundamentally, at least for now, we can't do that. Maybe somebody will come up with a smart design, SCU or in disk space and all that on the fly. But right now, what we're talking about is if you have horizontal scalability, you can have increased capacity on demand. The effect is you have elasticity in your supply, so you have that balance, right? So, and what other effect achieve, right, what we have is, I'll just talk a little bit more, is predictability. From the developer point of view, if you want to use an infrastructure, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, right, you want to have predictability how much it's going to cost you, right? So to have elasticity in supply means you can deliver a predictable product, service in terms of cost. So that's what this, that's what this is about.
My name is Jason. I want to ask a question that's slightly more on the technical side. So you said that in order to have parallel transactions, without this global ordering, like strict ordering, with all the transactions as in the scale of Ethereum, you want to push some of the state to the user side, so that user can, is that what you said? Like you can push the state of the tokens to the user accounts, or is that user?
It's an encapsulation problem. So maybe you guys ask the question again, see if I understand.
Yeah, so my understanding when I was reading the docs of these book-based languages, like partly because I didn't have the time to go through it fully, is that part of the token state reside with the user. So when you send the transactions, it seems that you don't have to go to a contract where there's a global state.
Right. So it's not to the user. I'm just going to pick on EVM, right?
Yeah.
But this is very common with a lot of the blockchains as well. So in EVM, the states, the metadata that describe the assets live inside the smart contract, right? In the smart contract is basically some random bytes. So that's why we have to have ERC 721 to describe the standard, so they are all agreed upon. Right, the data is in there, right? Boy, the data is there, say, this is boy number something, this is number 1 versus boy number 50. So that's all inside the smart contract. So in the ownership record is also inside the smart contract. It's literally a map. Say this boy number 1 belongs to address 0x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like literally inside. So you trapped, right? Your data is literally trapped in there, right? If you think about, if you're a programmer, you understand it's like, this is a complete design for encapsulation. I cannot expose private information inside this encapsulation to another, modules or whatever barrier, right? That's just fundamentally incorrect model. So what is the impact in terms of ownership, right? When I say I own a board, I don't actually own anything, right? It's that smart contract saying that happens. If that smart contract gets hacked, it's gone. The thing is gone, right? So the industry model is literally everything, all the information is inside an object, right? And the object is transferred into my account. So I wholly own it. So theoretically, right, let's use the Boyer example. Boyer did this and they published a type saying this is the description of the Boyer. Struct type that struct Boyer, name, number, trade 1, trade 2, right, all these things, right, all that. Right, and one day I purchased Boyer from the smart contract. I had that object with all the information in my account. And the Boyer smart contract was taken over by bad actors. And guess what? Because the type of information is there, somebody else will say, hey community, can you all agree we abandon the smart contract? Let me write a new smart contract that serves you. Then at least your asset has something, some value anymore. So I'm trivializing it. It's actually very complicated, more than that, because you also have to, you don't want to give it all that freedom because the people can misuse it. But that's what I'm talking about, right? So all the data that make an asset what it is are encapsulated in this object. And the object actually literally, not physically, but is actually belongs to you, is in your account. Right? So that's a big fundamental difference in the data model.
And is that the way to avoid contention of the centralized state as it here in a map, right? Everything's in a map. Is that the reason why Square and Apple is fundamentally faster, or?
No. Aptos doesn't have this property at all. So the Aptos is a traditional blockchain, processing. They use Move, but the data model is also different. So this is unique to Sui. It's the contention in the processing. What we talk about here is come from the programming model that's in support of the data model. In the smart contract programming model, you literally pass object as input, you have object as output, so the dependency information or the causation or information are preserved. So the system, when processing and say, these 10 transactions are interacting with this particular smart contract. Transaction 20 to 30 interacting with this other smart contract. These two groups have no contention. You're not related anyway, so we process them in parallel and separately. So it's not just like you take an existing blockchain, you add a move to it, and all of a sudden you solve the problem. Everything has to support, right? The entire system has to be designed around it. Thank you. Sure.
You have nice to meet you. My name is Wilson. We and my team, we are building GameFi project on Binance Smart Chain. We experienced some of the similar problem with EVM. We get hacked, we lost money, and our community are pissed off. So we are really exploring new tech stacks. We can help us to relieve this kind of problem. So my first question is very practical. If we want to build on Sui, who will be the contact person or who is in charge of the ecosystem or business development?
Well, I can connect you to the right people.
Exactly. I will come to you after this meeting. My second question is more about community. We know blockchain is not only about the technology, it's about the community's person who build on blockchain, the person who are using your blockchain or use the dApps on your blockchain. So what's going to be the strategy of Sui to do that? And I will give some two examples. Like for Libra, it's pretty much like a BD chance or business development chance. They get a lot of Web2 BD deals like with Starbucks, with Nike, and like for Solana, so like a community or tech community chain has a lot of hacks and projects, and it engages they are tech-heavy and develops very well. So what's going to be the style or plan for Three to build the community?
Well, so I'm going to have a longer answer to your question. People like to talk about community a lot, but they don't really share why. Right? Why is the community important? Well, because it's a decentralized network, right? Community, which means token holders. People have, again, remember Web3 is about collaboration, coordination. The community that owns the tokens, if they care about it, they will actively participate. That is what's about, right? They care about it. It's almost like, in a country, democracy, everybody has a vote. And the validator in this case are their representatives, right? If the representative, do as they wish them to do, you happily cast your vote to the representative who in turn represents your interests. So that is the analogy here. The community is really, really important for the security system for that reason, right? If they are apathetic, then it's really easy for the validators to abuse the power the community basically delegated to them, right? So you may have seen this. We did a friendly game for that reason. We want to teach the users, say, how do you do actual staking? So that's the community, right? We want a community that actually cares about the governments, getting involved. There's other community that's the developer community. There's also very, very important because they're the one that do the experimentation to try to discover that breakthrough. They're going to be the one that move fast and try things and fail and try other things. They're the one that's going to come up with some breakthrough, right? So we want an active, passionate, well-supported community. And we want a community of developers that care about doing things the right way, not just saying, hey, grant seeking. This chain are giving out free money. I can pour my same whatever to that chain, get 50,000, and move on, and keep on doing this, right? So we want the right kind of developer community as well. So these are all very important. So I think our community takes after our personality in a way. We're very open, very straightforward. We focus on delivering value. We do things the right way. We don't engage in a lot of the hype. We don't talk about free money and sort of a lot of BS is happening. So that's the community we want, and all the different community members perform the function. On top of that, we bring enterprise, big business, who one day will collaborate with this startup, right? And that's the kind of ecosystem we want that support each other. Startups, independent builders shouldn't see enterprises as enemies. Some of them they are, because they want to try to disrupt them. But a lot of these businesses are also looking for solutions to the problem, and the developer community can offer them, right? And the developer in turn is being supported by the enthusiastic community, right? Because they are the user, right? And they bring the sort of mainstream adoption. Because once you build up the buzz, right, in the mainstream economy, so they support each other, right? That's a function. That's a ecosystem community. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this excellent talk. And I have a question regarding the application. So actually, I know the suite has enabled so many things. For example, parallel computation, the object, just design, and all the other things. So my question is that with all this kind of functionality that you guys have enabled, what kind of directions or this kind of app that you think most likely can be a Kubernetes with all these kind of things you have here? I know there's other blockchain, but based on this kind of design principles at the very beginning, with the asset which you guys described it. So what kind of things at this current moment you think is more likely to be a Kubernetes based on the Sui ecosystem. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I think that early on you're going to see a lot of the ideas that's going to be tried taking to the next step. If you look at some of the early developers on Sui, they're all playing along with composability, the ownership model a lot, right? Because people already learned what NFT look like. They all kind of understand the limitations, what it's good for. So now people are iterating on that idea and saying, okay, what if it's NFT but freely composable with another NFT that's done by somebody else, right? What would that look like? And the reason why that's the case is for us, right, we realized early on it's like talking about it is really, really hard. People have this sort of understanding in their heads that all the blockchains are basically the same functionality. So that's why we designed this CAPI game to demonstrate that. Before we know it, right, during the World Cup, another startup was saying, you have a CAPI that has a type to describe what CAPI is and how you put clothes and other accessories on it. So during the World Cup, what they did is they built a prediction market. If you get it right, the outcome game is correct, you get a little flag, right, Brazilian flag, and then you add that to your CAPI. Right, so all of a sudden, other people realize, wow, that's interesting. This is the first time that composability of an asset has been demonstrated. I want to iterate on that idea further, right? So now we're seeing quite a few different ideas around that. So there's several examples like this. So that's the sort of the creation process, right? Nobody ever sort of get it right the first time, right? When we built DN, it was a blockchain with a better programming language, right? My co-founder that did it, others, first blockchain had a DAG-based consensus, but still everything else is still the same, right? We iterate on it. We know there's something more, something better we can do. So that's the process we're in right now. But at some point in time, one of these ideas is going to click, and it's going to have staying power. Then we'll see, right? Then the flag will really get going at that point in time. But it's really hard to predict where they will come from.
Hey, thanks for coming. My name is Dylan. So my question is kind of tangential to the community piece, and it's on go-to-market, right? So we talked about Molotov already. They have an incredible BD team that's really done a good job with enterprise adoption, Web2 adoption. How does Mysten Labs we plan on enacting that enterprise adoption when you try to sell to these companies, they don't really care about the technology, right? A lot of them are really looking for the biggest check. And you have companies like Aptos that are willing to double the grant money of any other foundation out there. How does Mysten plan on differentiating itself in moving enterprise contracts?
So, well, first the differentiation is not only do we have better technology that enable you solving different problems, we also have an understanding of the problems we can solve and how to solve them. So the reason why we would actually have a ton of success talking to bigger companies, and especially gaming, we have massive coming, like far more than just about any chance out there already at this stage. It's because we speak their language and actually understand the challenge they're facing. And a lot of times don't understand the challenge they already face when they try other chains. So, just be professional. Like I think we have a reputation now in the industry as being adult. We also understand how to treat our partners right. You mentioned a competing chain that want to throw exclusivity into everything. You are off to the wrong foot on step one. You're forcing exclusivity deal on your partner. That's not a partnership there, right? Because when your partner is failing on your platform, they're stuck. We already seen that. People are realizing, oh crap, this chain is not helping me at all. And I had an exclusivity with them. They did. right? So treating people right, being professional, being knowledgeable, building good tech, listen to people's problem, understand the problem, offer solution, offer actually concrete help. You know, that's how you build a business, how you build a platform.
Hello, my name is Mohamed. I'm creating a kind of game venture for Web3 games on mobile. I'm trying to make it like very easy for Web2 people to interact with Web3 in a way that they are not even aware that they are in the Web3 space. Basically, they can like start creating, like start earning money from the first minute, and like we deal with everything on the back end in the sense that like within the first minute they can see how much money they make in dollars. And yeah, so basically we want to go fully into enabling them to earn so quickly and enjoy so much, because the games in which we are very good that we have this kind of huge passion for Web2 to Web3. What do you think is the best kind of go-to-market and marketing strategy in that regard?
So you're not talking about like a play to earn kind of game.
Play to earn, yeah. It's to earn, like whatever to earn.
Yeah. So the challenge is play to earn, right? Again, I'm not an economist, right? But you see this happen over and over again. It's like when do you remove that incentive? Right, means is the right incentive. In this, path is not a great suggestion, right? But for any kind of product like staying power, right? What is the fundamental function you offer, the benefit you offer? In the case of games, I think it still comes out to entertainment and fun. Some of the games, especially a lot of play-to-earn games, it's a grind, right? The game mechanics is more grind, right? It's not really fun. They don't do it for fun. They do it only for money. They tend not to have a lot of staying power, right? So you can combine the two, then that's more likely, right? And the other thing is that if you issue too many of those tokens, right, the economy just doesn't make sense after a point in time.
Just 2 points. I'm not sure. Sometimes they are very fun actually, because the tokenomics add a lot of incentives even for the developer to create very good games. And I play them, so they are very good games actually. Generally, this is what I think, and I think it's a shame that we don't have this function. I think just for the bad reputation of some Web3 projects.
Yeah.
For the second part is the tokenomics most of the time to go very quick, because there are so many like frameworks, but like if you have a lot of players and a lot of input, then like on a regular basis, then everything is sustainable basically. Like whatever tokenomics is sustainable if you have a lot of people on a regular basis and in a huge volume. So this solves like these 2 issues.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, right, play to earn game can be fun, right? If you design, if there's already a fun game, you add an element of play to earn, it doesn't necessarily take away the fun part, right? So that's a good, check.
It's kind
right.
of even
Right, but then the second problem, the economic sense is much harder, right? Usually because once you give an incentive, now you're attracting people who may not be playing the game for fun. They may be playing for money. Then is your game design economic? Take that into consideration when the mass overwhelm of the people who are just there to enjoy the game, right? And do you issue more token and dilute every other incentive for everybody else, right? So that's what has been the difficult part of this, right? You tend to have, just like the snowball effect, right? Until it gets too big and then boom, right? Actually, that's exactly what happened, right? People, there was no clarity of how many people playing purely for money, how many people playing for money and fun. But there was an imbalance at some point in time that just, lost. So go-to-market is easy, right? You get this really, really fast effect, right? Step and also the same thing. But at some point in time, it's almost like it gets stupid and it bursts, right? I'm definitely not an economist, and game economy is hard to design, and I don't know if I have a good answer there. Somebody figured out can make a lot of money, honestly. Right? Combine the fun element and the economic that's sustainable. It's a magic combination, but I don't have an answer.
So for you, it's not about the go-to-market. So like a platform that creates traction is not solving any pain points. Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's less of a platform issue, right? Because it's you know, I mean, when you have offer incentive, you're going to attract people, right? We've seen a lot of examples of this, right? There was a huge number of play-to-earn games. You know, they all free airdrops. One of them even, you know, all free to earn, free to own, right? There was one that did a Super Bowl, ad, right? It's yet to be proven what model works, right? It almost feels like the go-to-market part is the easy part. It's a sustainability is the question here, right? When literally it's like when you have free stuff, people come, right? I mean, the power of this, you know, blockchain to be able to create this incentive is its power. What I'm saying is that's not enough, right? That solves the go-to-market problem for a lot of game developers, but it doesn't fundamentally solve the longevity, sustainability problem, right? So this is another area of people going to experiment and try.
Would you say it's a churn? Last question. Okay, no, it's okay. Is it a churn problem, or is it a churn most of the time?
I don't know. Honestly, what I've seen so far doesn't seem to be a churn problem. Rather, you know, actually is because of earning, it's just not enough anymore, right? You know, it's a limit, right? It's either inflationary where everybody suffer, or fixed, you're going to run out. But once the incentive run out, or the incentive isn't worth the time, people leave, right? And the whole thing collapses.
I have an abstract question. Every time Mysten Labs runs it out, will always say, thank you for your belief in us, small market. So at the same time, I'm curious, even after realizing so many barriers and difficulties, you still choose to risk your reputation, your career to create soon. So what's your own belief?
We are taking the risk to start a company in what's mine.
Yeah, what's your belief?
Yeah, I believe in value, right? So you know, I feel like a lot of people in the space are in for a quick buck. To me, you make money. The money, the wealth part is a byproduct of delivering value. That's what I fundamentally believe in. That's what my entire career is about, right? So you know, to me, I saw an opportunity because I have an amazing team, lots and lots of different ideas. I fundamentally believe we have figured out we can do better than anybody else, and also believe in the opportunity. Like I fundamentally believe the internet is going down the wrong direction, and somebody ought to do something about it. And that somebody is a massive developer, you know, who want to make a difference, right? Because the society is changing, but you see what's happening today. The creator phenomenon is not a new thing. It really is very much a cultural shift. People want to have more control of their own time, their own effort. They don't want to go to college and graduate and work for the man anymore, right? There is a clear change. So combining all that, right, the belief in ourselves, in the team, the need to change, and the shift. Why would I do this, right? It's obvious to me that I need to do this. You know, so that's why I'm here.
So I'm going to still be on the argument, this double argument because I'm doing this, but
alternative reality where people just end up never caring about the infra of the internet. And so in part, this question is asking what does success look like? That's a softball question, so maybe a better question is, I think I have plenty of friends who don't work in tech who probably will never care. So I understand that apps are built on top of the platform, but at the same time, if crypto gets a bad name, then you're basically playing hide the ball while also using it as infrastructure. So I agree about the optics being re-tooled in that sense. So mainly the question is, how is it possible to get to escape velocity where there's reduced friction of adoption? But does that look like hiding the ball, or does it look like being foot forward? Like, does it? I know it's kind of like predicting the future here, but I don't know.
So let me try to answer this way. Consumers should absolutely not care about tech. They care about product and solving the problem. Okay, so again, it's identifying who your audience is, who your consumers are, right? So every vertical is going to be different, right? To us, when we look at commerce, right, we start thinking about the challenges of both the advertisers, the businesses that need to acquire customers, right? They're all facing this issue where brands are finding very, very difficult to establish a relationship with the customer. Customer acquisition costs are going through the roof because advertiser the data is gone worse, right? So that to me, we have technology that allow people to build solutions to solve that problem. So we feel good about that vertical. Then you break it down in every aspect, right? We talk about traditional finance, we talk to them, we realize all the friction they're dealing with. They intuitively understand if they're persistent that can solve a lot of these friction, right? Then you realize, okay, maybe something, a platform that will build towards that, right? So gaming on and on, right? So that's the answer. Right? We're not hiding the ball. We're not talking about crypto hiding the fact that there's a crypto element, but crypto really is a tool only, right? It's not a solution. So when we say this is ultimately just a developer platform, it is absolute truth. Too much what's happening in space is people offering technology as the product. How many ZK-related rollout out there, right? These are technology jargons as a product to try to get people excited about, oh my God, zero-knowledge proof, it must be great, I want to buy it, right? Rather than saying what problem you're solving. So we just fundamentally don't believe that is the right way to do it, right? We're all about building a platform that solves problems. So success will look like in 3-5 years' time, we can point to say, these are the products that people are using daily, and they build on us. They utilize our technology. That is success. That's the only thing ultimately we care about. Because if we don't have that, we may enjoy some buzz and some hype for a few months, a couple of years, but eventually we'll go away. Right? It's just not sustainable. That's the only, that's it, right? There's no other success, honestly.
Very insightful answer, thank you. So thank you everyone for coming today. This is all the time that we have, but please come and chat with Evan afterwards. And in one sentence, I want to say that the reason why I'm so excited for this conversation is because Sui brings another degree of freedom when it comes to representing asset and allowing to map relationships, etc., that you couldn't previously do. So this is what makes it very exciting, the degree of freedom. So thank you, Evan, for joining us today.
Thank you.